You can just feel it, can't you? Every practice seems to bring a new surprise, and suddenly there are a few storylines that have fans buzzing. Some players are stepping up, others are starting to separate themselves, and it's getting harder to ignore what we're seeing out there. It's still early, but if these trends keep going, we might already be getting a glimpse of what this team is going to look like when the season kicks off. And honestly, some of these developments are way more interesting than anyone expected just a few days ago. If you're as fired up as I am about where this team is headed, smash that like button. And let me know in the comments, SKOL Nation, are you feeling it yet? It only took a couple of practices for the atmosphere around the Minnesota Vikings to start shifting. And if you were expecting the quarterback competition to remain neck and neck much longer, what happened at the latest training camp sessions may completely change the conversation. One quarterback isn't just stacking good throws anymore. He's beginning to separate himself in a way that's becoming difficult to ignore. Meanwhile, several rookies are forcing the coaching staff to pay attention much earlier than expected. Veterans are facing unexpected competition, and Brian Flores' defense could already have uncovered another hidden gem. The biggest surprises from camp aren't necessarily the names everyone expected, and by the end of this report, you'll understand why the depth chart may already be taking shape well before preseason football even begins. The biggest storyline continues to be the quarterback battle. And based strictly on what unfolded during the most recent practices, Kyler Murray appears to be extending his advantage over J.J. Dyer. The competition was expected to remain open throughout training camp, but the latest sessions painted a very different picture. Saturday's practice became the clearest indication yet that Murray currently holds the inside track to becoming Minnesota's starting quarterback. Not only did he outperform McCarthy during team drills, but the distribution of first-team repetitions also strongly favored the veteran signal caller. Over the last two practices, Murray has received the majority of the QB1 snaps, something that naturally raises questions about where this competition truly stands. Throughout the offseason, Kevin O'Connell emphasized that both quarterbacks would have opportunities to compete. However, when one quarterback consistently receives significantly more first-team work, it inevitably suggests that the coaching staff is leaning in one direction. The numbers tell the story. During Saturday's first-team offensive period, the Vikings ran 22 total offensive snaps. Kyler Murray handled 16 of them, while J.J. McCarthy received only 6. That difference isn't insignificant. In training camp, repetitions with the starting offense are one of the clearest indicators of where a player stands internally. Coaches want continuity with the first unit, especially as padded practices approach, and preparation becomes increasingly focused on Week 1. Right now, Murray is receiving those valuable opportunities. More importantly, he made the most of them. Observers at Vikings training camp described Murray's opening sequence as setting the tone for the entire practice. On his very first dropback during 11-on-11 drills, Minnesota's offensive design looked exactly how Kevin O'Connell has envisioned it. Jordan Addison stretched the defense vertically by running deep along the right sideline. At the same time, Justin Jefferson crossed underneath on one of the deep crossing routes that has become such a signature concept within O'Connell's offense. Rather than rushing the play, Murray stayed patient inside the pocket. He allowed the route combination to fully develop before delivering a perfectly placed football to Jefferson across the middle. It wasn't simply a completion. It represented timing, anticipation, trust, and an understanding of exactly how the route concept was supposed to unfold. Those are the details coaches notice immediately because they're often more important than arm strength alone. The chemistry between Murray and Jefferson appeared noticeable throughout the practice. When the team moved into 7-on-7 work inside the low red zone, Murray continued putting together an impressive day. After opening with a check down to Aaron Jones, he quickly shifted gears. He fired a touchdown pass over the middle to T.J. Hawkinson, demonstrating excellent recognition against tight coverage. He nearly connected with Hawkinson again on another scoring attempt near the right pylon. The pass itself gave the tight end an opportunity, but Hawkinson lost possession while attempting a difficult lunging catch. Instead of forcing another risky throw afterward, Murray calmly worked through his progression, found Xavier Scott, and added another touchdown. Those sequences highlight what coaches want from an experienced quarterback. Not simply spectacular throws, but consistent decision-making. Every successful drive builds confidence inside the offense. Every accurate read strengthens trust between quarterback and coaching staff. And every productive practice increases the possibility that the competition is slowly becoming less of a competition. That doesn't necessarily mean the battle has officially ended. Training camp still has several important practices remaining, particularly with pads coming on, where quarterbacks face a more realistic football environment. If McCarthy begins receiving more first-team opportunities during those sessions, it could signal that the coaching staff still considers the race completely open. But based solely on what has happened so far, Murray has established measurable momentum. On the opposite side of the equation, J.J. McCarthy experienced his most difficult practice since camp began. Rather than building upon his encouraging first few sessions, the young quarterback struggled to consistently move the offense. His opening throw resulted in an incompletion after a checkdown was tipped at the line. Soon afterward, he overthrew Jawan Jennings near the left sideline while attempting a difficult pass into tight coverage. The problems didn't stop there. During 11-on-11 action, rookie linebacker Jake Gold got his hands on another McCarthy pass, deflecting it into the air where Blake Cashman secured the interception. Inside the red zone, McCarthy's first attempt intended for Ty Felton was broken up by rookie defensive back Charles Demings. On another snap, he held onto the football too long before rolling outside the pocket and ultimately throwing the ball away without finding an open receiver. To his credit, McCarthy did bounce back with touchdown throws to Gavin Bartholomew and Dylan Bell later in the session, showing flashes of the talent that made him such an intriguing young quarterback. However, he also missed another opportunity by throwing high toward Felton in the back of the end zone. When evaluating the entire body of work, it became increasingly difficult to argue that both quarterbacks performed at the same level during this particular practice. One looked comfortable, decisive, and in complete command. The other showed promise, but also experienced the growing pains that often accompany a young quarterback adjusting to NFL speed. That doesn't eliminate McCarthy from the competition, but it certainly shifts the conversation. Instead of asking whether Murray deserves more first-team reps, many observers are beginning to ask what McCarthy must do over the next several practices to close the gap before preseason games begin. And while the quarterback battle dominated most of the headlines, it wasn't the only development generating excitement inside Vikings training camp. One rookie defender, in particular, may already be forcing Brian Flores to rethink how quickly he can contribute this season. What do you think? Based on everything we've seen so far in training camp, has Kyler Murray already taken control of the QB1 battle, or do you still believe J.J. McCarthy has enough time to flip the competition? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Even with the spotlight firmly on the quarterback competition, the Vikings coaching staff walked away from these practices talking about much more than just who will be under center. Several young players are beginning to emerge, and if these early signs continue, Minnesota's rookie class could end up making a much larger impact than many people expected entering training camp. One of the biggest names generating excitement is second-round pick Jake Gold. Coming into camp, there were legitimate questions about exactly how Brian Flores planned to use him. Some believed he could work primarily as an inside linebacker, filling responsibilities similar to Blake Cashman's role. Others wondered if he might become more of a hybrid defender capable of moving around the formation. The latest practices seem to have provided a much clearer answer. Jake Gold has been spending significant time as an edge rusher. That development alone says plenty about how the Vikings envision his future. Minnesota already has established starters at the position, but the coaching staff clearly believes Gold possesses the versatility and athletic traits necessary to contribute immediately while eventually developing into an even larger role. Observers at practice noted that Gold wasn't simply lining up on the edge, he was making plays. One of the biggest highlights came when he dropped into coverage, read JJ. McCarthy's eyes, perfectly, got his hands on the football and deflected the pass directly into Blake Cashman's arms for an interception. That wasn't just an athletic play. It was exactly the type of versatile defensive snap Brian Flores demands from his outside linebackers. The ability to rush the passer on one snap and seamlessly drop into coverage on the next is what makes Flores' defense so unpredictable. Gold looked comfortable doing both. Reports from practice even described the play as resembling something Andrew Van Ginkel would make. That's a significant comparison, considering how valuable Van Ginkel has become within this defensive system. Looking ahead, it's easy to understand why the Vikings may be so excited. Andrew Van Ginkel has been one of Minnesota's most productive defenders, but eventually every organization has to prepare for the future. Gold may already be positioning himself as that long-term answer. Even if he doesn't receive starter-level snaps immediately, these practices suggest the coaching staff trusts him far more than many expected this early. Should Van Ginkel ever miss time during the season, Gold now appears to be the leading candidate to step directly into that role. Another fascinating development involves rookie fullback Max Bredesen. Learning Kevin O'Connell's offense has never been considered easy. For veterans, mastering the system takes time. For rookies, especially someone replacing an experienced player like C.J. Ham, the adjustment can be even more difficult. Yet Bredesen is already working extensively alongside the first-team offense. That's a remarkable development this early in camp. Multiple observers pointed out just how involved he has become within Minnesota's offensive packages. Considering the complexity of the Vikings system, seeing a rookie fullback earn meaningful first-team repetitions suggests the coaching staff already trusts both his football intelligence and his ability to execute assignments. Perhaps even more interesting is what Bredesen's role says about where this offense may be heading. Minnesota has quietly become a far more physical football team. The addition of Bredesen fits perfectly alongside players like Jawan Jennings, widely respected as one of the league's better blocking wide receivers, and Josh Oliver, who continues to establish himself as one of the NFL's premier run-blocking tight ends. Add offensive coach Frank Smith's physical philosophy into the equation, and a clear identity begins to emerge. The Vikings appear determined to become much tougher at the line of scrimmage. Instead of relying exclusively on spread formations, Minnesota could incorporate more heavy personnel packages featuring multiple tight ends and a traditional fullback. If that happens, Bredesen won't simply make the roster. He could become an important piece of the offensive identity. The defensive secondary also delivered another encouraging storyline through fifth-round rookie Charles Demings. Every training camp seems to produce one young defensive back who starts turning heads. This year, Demings may be that player. During red zone drills, he found himself matched against none other than Justin Jefferson. Rather than looking overwhelmed, Demings stayed competitive throughout the rep. Observers noted that Jefferson never created meaningful separation. There may have been some physical contact that went uncalled, but the bigger takeaway remained the same. The rookie wasn't intimidated. Later in practice, Demings broke up another pass intended for Ty Felton with textbook coverage. Considering he arrived from the FCS level, those early flashes are generating legitimate excitement. His combination of size, athletic ability, confidence, and competitiveness gives Minnesota plenty to work with moving forward. Perhaps even more impressive than his physical performance were his comments afterward. Asked about facing elite receivers like Justin Jefferson, Demings delivered an answer that perfectly reflected the mentality coaches love to hear. He explained that playing cornerback isn't about focusing on the opponent. It's about mastering your own technique and trusting your preparation. According to Demings, knowing yourself is more important than knowing the player lined up across from you. Whether it's Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown, or any other elite receiver, his mindset remains exactly the same. To him, they're simply another assignment. That fearless mentality is essential for NFL cornerbacks. You cannot survive at the position if you become intimidated by big names. Demings appears determined to attack every matchup with the exact same confidence. That's exactly the kind of attitude Brian Flores loves within his defense. Another veteran whose role became clearer during these practices is Jamal Adams. Rather than spending extensive time at safety, Adams worked primarily alongside the first-team linebackers. That strongly suggests Minnesota intends to utilize him closer to the line of scrimmage. Based on these early practices, Adams appears positioned to handle responsibilities similar to the role previously occupied by Ivan Pace. It's another example of Flores maximizing positional flexibility throughout his defense. Instead of asking players to fit rigid positions, the Vikings continue searching for the best ways to deploy each player's individual strengths. Taken together, these practices reveal several important themes beginning to shape Minnesota's roster. Kyler Murray currently appears to hold the advantage in the quarterback competition. Jake Gold is emerging as a versatile defensive weapon much sooner than expected. Max Bredesen is earning meaningful opportunities with the starting offense. Charles Demings continues building momentum as one of the most intriguing rookie defensive backs in camp. And Jamal Adams seems to have already found his place within Brian Flores' defensive plans. Of course, training camp is far from over. More practices remain. Preseason games will provide even tougher evaluations. Depth chart battles can still change. But if these latest sessions are any indication, several important positions may already be moving toward clear answers. The Vikings are beginning to establish not only who their starters might be, but also which young players are ready to contribute immediately. And if these early developments continue, Minnesota could enter the regular season with far more depth, versatility, and internal competition than many expected just a few weeks ago. Now, I want to hear from you. Which storyline from training camp excites you the most? Is it Kyler Murray taking control of the quarterback battle? Jake Gold emerging as a future impact defender? Max Bredesen earning first-team reps? Or Charles Demings making a name for himself against elite competition? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another Minnesota Vikings update as training camp continues to unfold.